Welcome to Cinema Chop Shop. Watch, chop, retrofit.
Joey and I were both having car issues. My alternators dead.
So you need an alternator.
Exactly.
My check engine light is on.
Hey, okay.
Everything seems fine, but that doesn't mean that it is.
It's your turn.
There's tons of shit wrong with my car. It's a 2008 Toyota Yaris with 217,000 miles on it. The windshield wipers are probably the most serious thing. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. That's not what they mean by intermittent.
But this isn't Click and Clank or whatever those
Click and
guys
Clack, man.
from NPR. No, it's Cinema Chop Shop. It's a movie podcast where we get together and talk about films. And this week we've got a fun one. I'm your host, Shawn. I'm joined by Todd.
Howdy.
And Travisito.
I'm here too.
Joey is here in spirit. He, as we mentioned, had some issues with his vehicle he had to get attended to today. Hopefully he'll come back and be ready to go for the next episode. We're talking about Face Off.
I'm going to take his face off.
But we're not talking about Face Off the movie. We're going to be talking about other films dealing with face swaps, facial reconstruction, masks, obfuscation, mistaken identity, and those sorts of things. And when I rolled out the concept, I think Joey was the first one to say, there are not a lot of movies to choose from.
Oh, there totally is.
Yeah, there totally is. It's kind of a...
And some of them are older.
Yeah, plenty of old stuff, and it's kind of a trope at this point.
Yeah, and it seems inevitable for it to have become a trope, considering how important face value, for lack of a better term, is just in like human interaction. It's the first thing that you notice about somebody.
Sure, and it's one of the themes that comes up in several of the films as well, is like how much beauty is attributed to face value, literally, and also what lies beneath the surface is what defines us, I think, but there's so much attributed to that as well, and as a plot device of the mistaken identity or hiding your identity, disguising yourself as someone else. There's all kinds of movies that fall under this banner.
And the most famous example might not even be a movie, but the famous Twilight Zone episode Eye of the Beholder, where there's an individual who's getting facial reconstruction, but the faces of everyone is in shadow for the entire film. And then, of course, at the end, we get the moral of the story, which is that all the normal people look hideous.
There are a lot of shots in our feature segment, which we'll talk about in a moment, that reminded me of that episode.
Yep.
As well as the movie that you're going to talk about in the second half. There's some elements of that that reminded me of Twilight Zone.
What about the movie They Live? Could that also kind of tie into this? Because
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
When you see the truth, their face is hideous and mangled. And I guess also just the concept of masks, and like, to quote The Mask, we all wear masks, metaphorically speaking.
Right.
Just the idea of that being your outward identity.
I kind of made a joke that Jim Carrey's The Mask could have been part of this episode, as well as the Sam Raimi film Darkman.
Yeah.
He was able to disguise his features as part of his superpower, I guess, for lack of a better word. So, lots of films do fall under this, and they're kind of fun. Most of them do hinge the plot device on the face swap, so we're going to...
And it's like almost like a tangential subset of the body swap idea, but more practical.
So we're going to throw out a gigantic spoiler alert on this entire episode. If you've not seen these films and you don't want to be surprised, don't listen. Just watch the movies first.
Watch them first.
And then come back in, because we will be discussing spoilers. So let's start with our feature segment. This is going to be the film Eyes Without a Face.
Eyes Without a Face.
Obligatory. It was released in 1960 in France. It was released in 1962 in the U.S. under the title Horror Chamber of Dr. Faustus. Heavily edited and changed.
That's not even the doctor's name.
No, not at all. This was directed by Georges Franju.
Yeah.
Who before had done a very popular and graphic documentary about the meat and slaughter industry in France.
Okay, interesting next move.
Correct.
Yeah.
And the film itself was panned by critics because it was a horror film. And in France, we just don't...
respect.
We don't lower ourselves to do horror movies. We do high art. For that reason alone, the film kind of got blasted, but over time, it got acclaim as being one of those art house horror movies that kind of had some really cool nuance and style to it.
I bet that if Rotten Tomatoes were around back then, it would have a low critic score but a higher audience score because it was considered shocking to see in person.
Oh, it was shocking. And we'll get into some of those shocking elements, but pulled in various countries for various reasons and then returned just because of some of the graphic nature of one scene in particular. The film stars Pierre Brasseur, Alida Valli, Edith Scobe, and Juliette Manuel, among others. The film, at his secluded chateau in the French countryside, a brilliant, obsessive doctor attempts a radical plastic surgery to restore the beauty of his daughter's disfigured countenance at a horrifying price.
So I know it says he's brilliant, but what evidence do we have of his brilliance? Other than the fact that he has his own clinic and he does experiments.
But the experiments do not work.
They fail each time.
The only evidence we have is that he lectured at the beginning of the movie. And people were like, oh, very nice. Thank you, doctor. Thank you for sharing this information with us about regenerative tissue.
Yeah, he's sort of like a Doc Brown, Emmett Brown, except darker. A darker version of...
Clearly very wealthy, because the place he lives in is practically a mansion.
Pretty hefty chateau.
Yeah.
But within, as you mentioned off mic before the show, within 14 minutes, we are appraised of what the entire scenario is. He has his assistant, who he has done a successful surgery on, who is she kind of helps him recruit.
She's his assistant. She's his nurse. She's also his Ghislaine Maxwell.
Thank you very much so. She recruits these young women that he is going to use later on to steal their faces, to hopefully graft onto his daughter's face.
Who was in an accident and her face was horribly disfigured.
And I think this also is what killed his wife, yes, in the accident,
and
if I'm not mistaken.
We see at the very opening scene, Louise is disposing of a body, but it's implied that something went wrong with the surgery and that she died because of it. Was the intent to keep her alive with no face? Or was the face donor going to have to wear the mask now? What was going to happen had she lived?
That's not really made clear.
No, it's not.
And you're led to believe that it was an accident and that they were trying to sort through the misfortune. But I think it's revealed later on in the film that the bodies are just collateral damage in his pursuit of restoring his daughter's face.
And he once that body that was thrown into the river is found, he identifies it as his daughter to kind of give her a faking her own death scenario.
Right, because presumably she will have a new face once the successful surgery eventually happens.
So you're a police officer, a body comes out of the... lake. This doctor, who people say is brilliant, identifies the body. Okay, doc, but why is your daughter missing her face?
Not only that, but the doctor famously speaks on the topic of tissue regeneration and skin grafts.
He would have been a suspect immediately.
So these cops are just the dumbest cops on the face of the planet that they can't put two and two together that maybe Doc did it. But instead, they let it slide. And
even later, when it's brought to their attention by Jacques, they're still kind of reluctant.
Yeah. I guess because he's a well-to-do, respected guy in the social circles. So
the first surgery
he gets a pass.
Fails, and so he sends Louise out for a new donor.
Right. And at this point, we're introduced to his daughter, who wears this very unnerving mask.
She doesn't like to wear it.
She doesn't like to wear it. She's often just got her head buried in a pillow crying. But when you do see her on camera with the mask, it's just this porcelain mask, which, by the way, John Carpenter...
That's one of my fun facts.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Okay. I won't spoil it.
Okay.
I'll edit that out.
But the mask definitely has a kind of uncanny valley quality because it's very realistic in its form, but unmoving.
Right.
The face doesn't move with expression or with her speaking. And so it gives it that eeriness.
And all you have are her very expressive eyes.
Without a face.
Thank you for putting a fine point on that one.
And this, as a side note, this featureless-looking mask was apparently a inspiration for the mask from Halloween.
Wow.
Wow, you were really listening to what we were talking about.
You were tuned in here.
I did brain fart for a second.
That's an early fun fact, guys. We won't repeat that later. That was
Sorry,
great.
I did.
It's fine. It's fine.
The new recruit gets brought in under the auspices of being a lodger at a room in the chateau. She needs a room because she's a college student. And while they're trying to convince her, and she's skeptical, she's like, I need to get back to
Yeah, I
Paris.
gotta go.
The suburbs
I gotta
don't really
bounce."
work for me. She gets chloroformed by the doctor. And so then we move forward, and she's in the surgical suite.
Right.
This is where we see the controversial scene of the facial transplant.
Yes.
Right? The doctor asking for forceps like 15 times to hold the skin away from the face. And he calls for a scalpel. And then he calls for a pencil. And he uses the eraser end of his pencil to peel the face off of the musculature. I thought that, I mean, you've got
It's
this
kind of an odd
you've got
choice
all
of
these
tool.
instruments, and you're like, well, the pencil will work as good as anything. And at first, it seems like the transplant is going to work.
Yeah, and then we go through this really strange description where you have the daughter on camera wearing the new phase, and they do this gradual transition from
2 weeks,
2
5
weeks,
weeks, 12 weeks.
and then gradually it starts to get more and more gangrenous and just gross. And
we should also mention that second donor, Edna, the young college student, she awakens almost immediately after the surgery and attempts to escape and falls out of a window and dies.
Yes.
So they got another body to get rid of.
which, yes, they have to do that. And then her roommate, of course, starts to sniff around and wonder what's going on. She goes to the cops, and that's when the cops recruit their own mole, I guess you could call it.
Only because Jacques clues them in about the pearl choker.
Right.
She's like, oh, pearl choker, because that was a clue one of the witnesses had, I think the roommate. And he said, that reminds me of somebody. And so then they decide to use that girl who was busted for shoplifting as the lure in a trap.
Yes, the choker, of course, referring to his assistant. That's what she uses to cover her scars from her surgery.
But plot-wise, though, I do think the falling out of the window and that sort of thing is a little convenient because it's like, what did they intend to do with these people?
Indeed, yeah.
They couldn't send them on their merry way to,
looking like Red Skull.
Yeah, exactly.
At this point,
So-
I should interject that there is also this subplot, I guess you could call it, of the kennel of dogs.
Yeah, he's got all these dogs that Wikipedia describes as German Shepherds and other dogs. It's mostly other dogs. It seems like there's not two of the same breed in this thing, but we're to understand that they're being mistreated and experimented on.
They're being experimented on, and he's an asshole to them. His daughter is quite loving with the dogs, and they respond well to her.
They even respond well to her when she's wearing the porcelain mask,
Right.
which is kind of an interesting point, that they see the real her despite her face.
And that was a good touch in terms
Or
of
smell.
turning
Maybe
the
they
audience
smell her.
against this guy, because one thing we know is that people will tolerate human beings getting tortured in the movie, but don't fuck with the
They
dog.
don't mess with the dogs, exactly. So
then John Wick shows up.
so we end up with the lure, as Travis put it, in the same situation of being brought in to be the face swap.
The surgery is interrupted by
Yes.
the police because the police have figured out that she was discharged from the hospital but never made it home because she was picked up by Louise, taken back in there. She's in the middle of surgery. They've drawn the lines on her face but not yet made the incisions, and the police come to the door. So he's interrupted. He has to stop and go talk to the police. But while that's happening, the new girl comes to. She wakes up. And Christiane, the daughter, is there. For some reason, she's just there kind of watching. She's not sedated
Yeah,
yet.
she was kind of watching from the back of the
And sitting
of the
on
lab.
a chaise lounge. And so she picks up a scalpel, and the victim screams, thinking she's going to cut her, but she cuts her ties, her restraints. And she proceeds to let her go.
Yes.
But not before the girl conks Louise over the head with something and knocks her unconscious. And then when Louise comes to, Christiane stabs her in the chest or the neck with a scalpel, and she dies. And then she lets the dogs out. The police have already left.
Answering that eternal question.
Who let the dogs out? Yes.
Who? And the dogs immediately turn on the doctor and
chase him down.
and chase him down and basically eat him, killing him.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then she goes and lets the birds out.
Yes, we're
the
left
doves,
with this scene of Christiane wearing her mask in this very beautiful dress.
Just kind of walks into the woods, and that's the origin story of Snow White. Because she's got these little birdies accompanying her into the woods. Now, it was kind of an ending that left you wondering, like, what on earth is she going to do now? Because she didn't get her new face. She still has this mask. And everybody she knows is dead, except for Jacques. Jacques still around, but he doesn't know about.
He doesn't know about her,
right?
Yeah. So you're left to wonder. But it does raise all these questions about the doctor. Clearly makes it clear that her worth, her beauty, is all tied to this successful facial surgery, and she basically is stripped of all of her agency in this film because she's just the waiting subject for
she doesn't even, at a certain point, she doesn't even want to continue with attempting the surgery. She asks Louise to kill her. She wants one of the dog's shots. When something goes wrong with the experiments, she basically wants a suicide shot. And Louise won't do it. I do wonder about what Jacques goes on to do after this, because the police were like, as for your broken heart, I'm sure you'll be fine. You're young. And just
plenty of fish in the sea. This film, as we mentioned, influenced Face Off. But it also influenced The Skin I Live In from 2011, the movie
with Antonio Banderas.
It is a direct homage to this movie. But yeah, it raises those questions. Does a face define the person? She only finds freedom when she's releasing the doves wearing the mask. That's when. So obviously, the answer is that your face doesn't really define you, but it's kind of nice to have one.
Well, her father's it kind of imposes his vision of her face onto her. And it seems like maybe she might have been open to some other kind of existence, but his domineering presence doesn't allow for that.
Yeah, his pride as a surgeon. He takes great offense at anybody who suggests that he doesn't know his own skill.
Her blank face is essentially a blank canvas for his attempts at the mad science arts, I guess you'd say.
And he is definitely the mad scientist archetype. He definitely fits that cabinet of Dr. Caligari kind of thing.
I would have Vincent D'Onofrio play the doctor. Oh, wait, we're not recasting? just for face value?
Oh, the biggest thing that I wanted to say. Whenever Louise, the assistant, has a scene, it plays this really strange circus music.
Dun, 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 dun.
Not like that. It's more. It sounds like Curb Your Enthusiasm's theme song.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So go back and watch the movie, and you'll hear it every time she has a scene by herself. It's this weird, like, what was that, harpsichord kind of music, like Curb Your Enthusiasm's music.
I did notice while watching it that the score in parts seemed a little out of place.
Yeah. It's disjointed, and I think that's intentional.
Yeah, keeps you on your toes.
It is meant to be a disturbingly strange movie, and the tone of the film, while being kind of a horror movie, it still has this oddball, strange, artsy kind of vibe going on, which is why I kind of like it.
Yeah, I ended up liking it too. With a lot of these movies that Shawn picks, the older foreign language films, my ADHD kicks in and it feels like homework. So I procrastinate and procrastinate. And then I eventually watch it. I'm like, oh, this is pretty fucking good.
I watched all the supporting stuff on Criterion that had an interview with the director. He talked about the critics just browbeating him about the film and just rejecting it outright as being trash. He made I think 3 other movies with the actress that played the daughter.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so apparently they worked very well together. Oh, and another thing about the daughter, there is that brief time in the film where we get to see the actress with her real face, that it's the transplanted face that goes wrong. She's an odd-looking person.
Yeah, kind of pixie-ish.
Space cadet kind of look in her eye, just real ethereal and unusual, almost unearthly, which was very effective and appropriate for the movie.
Well, she needed very expressive eyes for the role because she was acting with her eyes for the majority of the film.
But when she got that face, though, that's when it's like, wow, she really does look odd, and it was perfectly done because it's not hers. It's not her face. Supposedly, they really pulled that off to great effect.
Fun facts?
Go for it.
Well, Todd, you might be interested to know the director John Carpenter once suggested that the selection of the rubber mask that Michael Myers wore in Halloween 1978 was influenced by the overall appearance of Edith Scove's mask in this film. Oh. I don't know how he suggested that. It was like in conversation and he alluded to it, like elbow. Like, I don't know. Yeah. Then also in 2001 on VH1 Storytellers, singer Billy Idol cited the film as giving him the idea for his song Eyes Without a Face. The song, which has the film's French title, Les Yeux Sans Visage, as a recurring line in the chorus, takes the father-daughter relationship from the film and recasts it as a deteriorated relationship between the narrator and his lover. The song became Idol's first top 10 hit in the United States. I had no idea that that's what was being said in the background.
Yeah, I didn't either, no.
You just kind of hear it tonally, but it's...
good stuff.
Les yeux sans visage.
Yes. Awesome. Check out the film if you've not seen it, but hopefully you have, because we told you not to sit through this stuff because we're spoiling everything.
Yep.
Spoilers abound. All right, we're going to take a break. We're going to do intermission, but not before we say, let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby and get ourselves some open-face sandwich.
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
Yum, yum. It's time for a tasty and refreshing snack. We promise to satisfy your hunger, your thirst, your sweet tooth. So visit our refreshment center now. Let's go.
And we're back. I peed in the yard. Todd peed in the yard. Travis just sat here.
I'm a camel.
He is. All right, we finished our first half. We're going to jump into our individual picks having to do with our face-off episode. And Joey, since he can't be here, has sent along his notes on the film that he selected. It was Dark Passage.
From 1947.
Directed by Delmer Davies?
I want to say Davies.
I'm going to say Davies.
Davies sounds better than Dave's.
He directed mostly westerns like 3:10 to Yuma and The Hanging Tree. So here are Joey's notes. Sometimes a movie is exactly the sum of its parts. That's the case with Dark Passage. The first half hour or so is actually pretty gripping, shot mostly in first-person POV to hide the main character, Vincent Perry, from the viewer until plastic surgery turns him into Humphrey Bogart. It easily could have been gimmicky, I suppose it is, but it works because the POV camera work is actually pretty slick and unnerving and gets up close and personal with Perry, who's on the run after being framed for the murder of his wife. He actually escapes prison.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
That's the good news. The bad news is that once Perry runs into a cab driver who sniffs out his need to hide and offers to introduce him to an underground plastic surgeon willing to change his face, the film falls off considerably. There's the usual crackly chemistry between Bogey and Bacall, who plays a socialite smitten with Perry after becoming convinced of his innocence during the press coverage of his murder trial, and the other performances are all up to snuff, but the story goes pretty limp. It often feels like noir by the numbers as it pulls out familiar trope after familiar trope and suffers from a plot highly dependent on chance circumstances. In the end, it's a solidly middle-of-the-pack film noir, noteworthy mostly for the camera work and audacity to hide one of the biggest stars in the world from the camera for almost the first half of the film.
Yep.
Yeah.
Bogey and Bacall did 4 films together: The Big Sleep, Key Largo, To Have and Have Not, and this one. Dark Passage isn't exactly a dud, but it easily is the least of those. It's worth a watch for noir fans or viewers with esoteric challenges like watching a film with facial reconstruction as a plot device.
Yeah, that first half of the film, I was intrigued. Joey had already texted his, sort of ambivalent feelings about it, and I was like, what? I was like, this is like pretty original, pretty awesome, but he's right, though. Once he meets the person who's going to help him out of the predicament, almost that whole side of it, it doesn't get dropped per se, but it just becomes, kind of in the background, that element of the plot, and then it just, as he said, becomes by the numbers.
For me, it feels by the numbers. For me, it feels like it was spin the wheel on all the noir tropes kind of thing. We have 2 people who fall out of windows to their deaths conveniently to help wrap up the story. We don't see.
We had that in the previous movie too.
But this one was just like we got to dispose of this threat so we can get to the next threat, and now we've got to tie up the movie. And the true puppet master, the true villain, the femme fatale, isn't even introduced until like the very final stretch of the movie.
Yeah.
And so it's like very bolted on feeling.
This feels like a producer had some hand in the bad direction it went in, either rushing the screenwriter who had a really good idea to wrap it up to get filming going, or meddling with it so that as producers tend to do, to make it more audience friendly or something along those lines. But I don't know that that's the case, but that's kind of what it feels like.
Yeah, I think high marks for the fact that it was a POV early in film, and as well as Humphrey Bogart willing to say, yeah, sure, I don't have to be on camera for the first half of the movie. Sure, no problem. The plot of the guy who helped him, gave him a ride after he had broken out of prison, comes back because he figures out who he is and wants to extract whatever money or blackmail from him. Boy, that was a stretch.
Yeah.
So that was Dark Passage. You've got fun facts, I think, Travis?
I just got one. Well, I had two. We already mentioned this was the third of 4 films made by husband and wife, Bogart and Bacall. Also, the actual 1937 Art Deco apartment building used in the film, located at 1360 Montgomery Street in San Francisco, is still standing, or was as of 2023. The apartment, number 10, is marked by a cardboard cutout of Humphrey Bogart, which can be seen from the street.
All right, Todd, this takes us to you.
Okay. So this is a Japanese film from 1966, The Face of Another. It's actually considered part of the Japanese New Wave, which was going on around this time. Directed by Hiroshi Teshigahara, who probably his most famous film other than this one is Woman in the Dunes, which is a great film. But interestingly, that film and this one, The Face of Another, are both based off of novels by the Japanese novelist Kobo Abe. I've actually read Woman in the Dunes, and it's a really good novel, but the director is very faithful to the novel in his depiction of the film, and in a very difficult, you wouldn't think reading that novel that it would be an easy film to, or something easy to depict on film. And so I'm curious. I haven't read The Face of Another, but it's curious how faithful that would, novel is to the movie as well. But the story follows an engineer, Okuyama, who is played by Tatsuya Nakadai, who has severe facial burns in a work-related accident, married, and he is very kind of paranoid about how he's being received with this. He kind of abuses his wife a bit, who doesn't really, who's trying to deal with the situation as best she can. It seems like
my note is so mean to his wife.
Yes. There's one scene where she's behind him and she tries to turn the radio on. He says, "Oh, you intentionally sat there so you wouldn't have to look me in the face." And she's like, "What?" So this is kind of the treatment that the wife is getting. In order to get help for this situation, he's walking around with bandages all over his face like the Invisible Man, which I think there are certainly nods to with this
think
film.
That was intentional.
Definitely. And so he seeks out the help of a doctor who is an interesting character, or I guess he's a psychiatrist, but he also has a technique for making masks. His name is he just goes by psychiatrist, basically. I don't think we actually get a name, do we? I don't recall.
Doctor,
one.
psychiatrist.
Yeah. But Mikijiro Hira plays that particular character. He's kind of an interesting character because he ends up kind of being a mad scientist, but in a very more subdued way than what we see.
In a stylish new wave kind of way.
Yes, a stylish new wave, even-keeled sort of mad scientist, because he wants to use this mask. He has these psychological theories about how the mask will impact the engineer's, Mr. Okuyama's psyche as he puts the mask on. The first thing that they have to do is they have to find someone who is willing to allow their face to be used. There's this process that he's developed. It's kind of convoluted. It's kind of a convoluted process, but they use this substance that is supposed to form to the face and skin in such a way to where it looks very realistic.
It's kind of like Face Off.
Yeah, exactly. Except they don't literally take your face off and put it on. They just there's this substance that they use to make that happen. There's a great scene where they're putting this mask on. I'm sure just using the makeup that they would normally use, but it's pretty cool to see them applying it to his face. Pretty creepy, very effective. There is an initial stage when the mask goes on where it has that blank look to it, kind of like what we see in some Eyes Without Face and some other films. And then it slowly and gradually kind of adjusts to the contours of his face. There was some sort of explanation for that about the lines of the skin or something like that. He gets this mask and goes about, starts interacting in the world. He is skeptical at first about how effective this is going to be. The super at the apartment that he lives in has a mentally challenged daughter who keeps stealing a yo-yo from one of the other tenants, and she recognizes him. He had promised in his mask to give her a yo-yo so that she wouldn't do something stupid, climb up in a tree and get the yo-yo that the tenant had thrown up there so she couldn't steal it.
This kid loves yo-yos.
Yeah, exactly.
This film is offensive in this part.
No, it very much is, yeah. So what ends up happening...
Are you going to say it?
Well, I'm not going to use the terminology, but the doctor's explanation for why... No, this still works. I guarantee that your friends won't recognize you. She's able to recognize you in the same way that a dog can sniff out and have the sense of smell, the heightened sense of smell.
Yeah, basically he was comparing mentally challenged people to
dogs.
Dogs.
Yes.
Well, like the dogs in Eyes Without a Face recognized the girl even though she had the mask on.
Yep. But now he's applying it to a person, and the explanation is that she has the heightened sense of smell because
she's touched.
What they used to offensively say back in the day, R-word strength, if you remember, it's kind of that sort of thing. But coming from a medical person, supposedly, in any case, yes, very offensive, but that's how that's explained away. He does go to meet, I guess it was his secretary or something like that, to see if she's able to figure out who he is, and she's not. He even says, I'm, the younger brother of himself. She doesn't buy that either. So now he knows that, okay, it actually is working.
To be fair, in 1966, the R word was in the DSM-4.
Yeah, that's true. One creepy element, as I'm going along, though, is his beard starts off looking really fake, but it just has... and I'm sure this was by intent, but it slowly starts looking more and more realistic and filled in. I thought that was an effective way of doing. I mean, I'm sure it was just the growth from a few days, but it slowly starts looking more and more like a face. He decides to seduce his wife because he doesn't think that she's going to recognize who he is. And so he just follows her in a crowd, bumps into her, convinces her to go get tea with him. She goes along with it.
They play footsie.
They play footsie under a table in a very kind of erotic scene. Yeah, I thought it was pretty hot. And go back, make love. And he thinks that she doesn't know this all the time, but you could kind of see where this is going. She actually knew that it was him the whole time and thought that this was just sort of role playing. She, of course, finds out. He starts to get mad and take the mask off in a great scene where he's peeling the mask off to reveal that, I'm really the husband. And he kind of leaves it halfway unpeeled.
Gross.
Which is kind of, it's effective. But the wife's like, no, I knew it was you all the time, dummy. And now you've ruined everything because I'll never be able to forget that you actually...
I lost my horny.
Yeah. The betrayal of you were going to try to trick me, and I thought that you were doing something nice to try and help me.
He totally killed the lady boner.
Yep. Mm-hmm. So now he's ruined his relationship. At the end of the film, the doctor and this guy are walking, and Okayama are walking together, and people start coming off, I guess, a subway or a bus, and they all have this blank look on their face, and it seems like only the doctor can see it. And now he's upset and demands that the mask be given back because he wasn't supposed to keep the mask to begin with. Mm-hmm. This is where it gets kind of philosophical, so he gets into this. You're not the only person who's lonely, he says something to this effect.
Yep.
He refuses to give the mask back, ends up stabbing the doctor and killing him. One element that I haven't mentioned yet is there is a subplot to this that doesn't have any connection to the main plot, which is this young girl whose half of her face is been burned. And so we are introduced to her in a scene where she's walking down the street, and these, street youths try to hit on her, and then she turns around and she's burned, and then they're disgusted.
She keeps it mostly covered with her hair.
Mm-hmm. Well, she has a brother who, long story short, she, it's clear that they're very close. And then the sister towards the end of the film asks her brother to kiss her and embrace her. And I guess it's implied that they kind of get it on, as it were.
Shit going on.
Yeah. And then she, at the end of the film, or at the end of her segment, right before the end of the film, just kind of walks into the sea while the brother looks out the window in anguish. So that was an interesting little
Really
subplot.
Interesting, but it sounds, to hear you say it, and that's exactly how I would describe it. It sounds like completely out of left field and unrelated, but it's woven well into the film.
Yes, and it fits in with that philosophical element that comes up at the end about you're not the only person who's lonely, and we see this other person whose disfigurement has caused them to be alienated from society, but the disfigurement part is, of course, takes on the shade of a metaphor when we see the people at the end of the film who all have blank expressions on their face. And so now we're seeing this, that these two characters are not just meant to be looked at as unusual freaks, but that they have the same issues that everyone else has, and theirs is just manifesting itself physically, I think.
You mentioned him looking like the Invisible Man when he had his mask on. It kind of plays along some of the same themes of the Invisible Man and Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, which is when you don't have your face, how do you behave? When you don't think anyone knows it's you,
and
do you misbehave? Do you do bad things?
And the doctor tells what his theory is to Okuyama. He says that he believes that the mask will end up controlling the personality as time goes on rather than the reverse. And that does seem to be what ends up being the case. He starts dressing differently than he normally would, behaving differently than he normally would.
Travis, did you haven't watched this?
I have not.
Okay, it's visually got some really cool artsy things going on.
Oh yeah.
In that the doctor's office, there are these hanging transparencies of like linear contour drawings of faces and stuff.
Okay.
And at one point, our main character standing in front of one of the contour drawings wearing his mask. It's just this really neat
cool
superimposition. And then there's a door that has hair on it.
Yeah.
The hair door.
Yeah.
That was weird.
Yeah.
Okay. Fun facts.
Sorry, I'm stuck on hair door.
Hair door. Uh-huh.
All right. So fun facts. Director Hirashi Teshigara said that he intended the film to explore both personal and cultural identities. While the examination of personal identity is quite overt, he also explored how Japan's cultural identity had been impacted by World War II and its aftermath. And also, this is the third of 4 film collaborations involving this director and author Kobo Abe and scorer Toru Takemitsu.
Okay. Oh, I didn't mention that. The score is excellent with a kind of a carnivalesque sound similar to Eyes Without a Face at times.
Their other film collaborations are the aforementioned Woman in the Dunes, also Pitfall from 1962, and The Man Without a Map from 1968.
Cool.
Nice.
Well, Travis, I guess that brings us to your very good pick.
Oh, my goodness. So this is a movie from
I didn't
1991.
finish it.
And I remember when this came out, at least on VHS, 11 or 12-year-old me remembers it, probably because of the nude scenes.
And the graphic sex scenes, almost Showtime,
That's why
Skinamax-esque.
I'm staying on brand with that one. So it's directed by Wolfgang Petersen.
Shattered.
Did I not say the
I
name?
can't remember.
Shattered is the name of the film, directed by Wolfgang Petersen, who has done some legitimate movies. He directed Das Boot in 1981. He did The Neverending Story, Enemy Mine, In the Line of Fire, Outbreak.
Great movies.
The Perfect Storm. Also Troy and Poseidon, which were not
great
as
movies.
good. We've got a 40% on Rotten Tomatoes for this one, which is about right. It's not a good movie. Shawn and I both commented that it plays like a soap opera.
Very much so.
Yes.
So, while driving at night along the Northern California coast, architect Dan Merrick, played by Tom Berenger, and his wife Judith are involved in a car wreck. Dan suffers major injuries and brain trauma, resulting in psychogenic amnesia. After extensive plastic surgery, Dan returns home in Judith's care. Dan relies on those close to him to help him restore his past, including his business partner, Jeb Scott, who was played by
Corbin Burnson.
And it's a
Reuniting from Major League.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Slumming, too.
Jeb's wife, Jenny, played by Whaley. What is her name?
It's Val Kilmer's ex-wife, Margaret Whaley.
Not Margaret Qualley.
I remember her from Willow.
And she was married to Val Kilmer at the time.
I'll look it up while you're...
Dan has frequent flashbacks he believes to be events that led up to the car crash. Dan finds discrepancies in the stories about his former self.
Joanne
Whaley. He stumbles upon photographs of Judith sleeping with another man. Dan finds an expensive bill to a pet store and follows up with its proprietor, Gus Klein, played by
Bob
Hoskins. And
Great cast.
Talk about slumming.
Gus says the payment was for services provided as a private investigator to follow Judith, and it revealed that she was cheating with a man named Jack Stanton. Judith arranges a meeting with Stanton, and Dan follows her. Judith stops at an old shipwreck slated for removal by Dan's company. Assuming the wreck is a key in remembering his past, Dan has its removal postponed.
Jack Stanton is so soap opera.
Yes. Jenny accuses Judith of planning the accident to eliminate Dan, who's worth a lot in insurance money. As he works with Gus to keep tabs on his wife with a wiretap, Dan tails her to a hotel where she and Stanton are to meet. But Stanton leaves, and a car chase ensues through a wooded area. They're doing this car chase literally through the woods, not on roads at all, and completely mess up Gus's car. He's like, "I'm sorry, I'll make it up to you." After gunshots are fired from Stanton's car, Dan and Gus crash while Stanton escapes. That night at home, Dan arms himself and lies in wait. At gunpoint, an intruder is revealed as Judith disguised as Stanton. You could really tell it was a woman in a leather jacket just by her stature. She explains that Stanton is actually dead, killed by Dan on the night of the accident. Judith had intended to stop the affair with Stanton. Judith says that she and Dan covered up the murder by disposing of Stanton's body in the shipwreck. When Dan reveals he postponed the ship's removal, Judith becomes hysterical and suggests that they should flee. Dan receives a phone call from Jenny imploring him to see her, but when Dan arrives, he finds Jenny dead. He is confronted at gunpoint by Gus, who's already there, who followed him, thinking Dan must have murdered Stanton. Pleading for his life, Dan convinces Gus to visit the shipwreck, where they find a chemical storage container. Dan dredges up a body of a man who looks exactly like himself.
Dun, dun, dun!
Dan realizes that he is not Dan Merrick at all. He is actually Jack Stanton. So after the crash, the plastic surgeons restored her, quote, husband to his former appearance based on photographs. Judith had banked on the chemical dissolving Dan's body, but because it was actually formaldehyde, she had preserved it. Gus is shot by Judith and falls into the water. Judith forces Jack to leave with her. She drives erratically down the same stretch of road from the night of the accident, confessing to the murder of Jenny, saying that she had figured everything out and had to be killed. She hid the facts from Jack so he would have plausible deniability. After the crash, she told the plastic surgeon that the man she was with was her husband, Dan. Distracted by a police helicopter that's there almost immediately after Gus is shot, Judith loses control of the gun and Jack grabs it, demanding she stop the car. Judith decides to kill them in a murder-suicide car crash, but to her shock, Jack immediately rolls out at the last second, and a horrified Judith ends up plummeting to her death herself. And a huge explosive car crash.
Oh, yeah.
The fourth plummeting to death in these movies that we've discussed, I think.
The police helicopter lands, and an injured Gus Klein, Bob Hopkins, emerges. Gus survived his plunge into the water after being shot thanks to his asthma inhaler. He's breathing through his asthma inhaler under, they say water. It's actually like toxic waste. The two board the helicopter with Gus referring to Jack as Dan. presumably securing Merrick's fortune for him. The helicopter lifts off, flying over the burning car at the bottom of the cliff before flying away towards San Francisco. This is the part I had a problem with.
Oh, this is when you have a problem.
So we're to assume that just because Bob Hoskins isn't going to turn him in as not being Dan Merrick, that everything's going to be fine. However, we still have this body of the real Dan Merrick sitting in the formaldehyde in the shipwreck. How did Bob Hoskins get the police helicopter to the scene so fast and catch up to them, and under what pretenses? Because he can't tell them, listen, this guy's really not Dan Merrick. He's really Jack Stanton, who was really dead, and his wife really did it. And we also still have Jenny's body back at the beach house, stabbed in the chest, which the police are aware of because, I'm just calling him Bob Hoskins now, Gus, made an anonymous phone call to the police about that body. He says there's been a murder and then hangs up. So they're aware of that body. Somebody's going to have a lot more explaining to do other than, oh, my wife did everything. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, absolutely.
Lucy, you got some explaining to do.
Yeah. The movie itself, it pretty much holds up except for a few minor details. No, it was bad. It was a real bad movie. We did have some nice nudity. We were not within the first 5 minutes though, unfortunately. It was probably about 7 or 8 minutes in. We see Greta Sachi, who's playing his wife, naked. And that actually brings me to, well, one of the fun facts. Greta Sachi's breakthrough role in Heat and Dust from 1983 earned her a reputation for being relaxed about on-screen nudity. She had stripped down for scenes in Presumed Innocent and White Mischief in 1987, among others, until she reached the edge of her tolerance with this movie. Quote, "There I was in the missionary position," she would later say, "with the fourth famous actor in 6 months on top of me. Harrison Ford, Vincent D'Onofrio, Jimmy Smits, and now Tom Berenger."
Wow.
Another fun fact, the car crash was filmed using a custom-built, quote, gun with a compressed gas thrust of about 1,400 pounds, which sent a Mercedes 560 SL sailing 200 feet off a cliff before it fell more than 500 feet. Recording the action were 6 cameras, several manned by rope-secured technicians experienced in climbing rock faces to get into pivotal positions. Camera crews lower down the cliff had to be put in place with their equipment by a heavy-duty helicopter capable of lifting 2,000 pounds.
Well, there you go.
I wonder if, given the pedigree of the director and the cast, I wonder if all involved thought, hey, this is going to be our, like, Basic Instinct, our, psychological thriller, because I kept thinking, oh, this is like an attempt to do that kind of psychosexual...
Basic Instinct, doesn't it?
I think it does.
Yeah, it does.
Really? By at least a year.
But
Does
it's
it?
very much fits into this. As I told Travis, this is exactly how I remember all thrillers and sexual thrillers from that era.
Well, I guess you did mention, I guess it is also in that vein of, what was the one you mentioned from the early 80s? Was it Body Double that you said, or one of those? Heat.
Oh, she was not in Heat. She was in Heat and something else.
Okay. A movie, though, in that kind of genre. Yeah, so that... But
even the music, I think Alan
Silvestri
did the music for this, and it just sounds like a daytime soap opera ramped up for nighttime viewing. Is exactly.
Now that you mention it, Todd, I think Basic Instinct was the following year, so it's 1992. This
Interesting.
Predates it by 1 year.
So definitely much in the same vein, though.
Yeah. Could have been written by Joe Esteros.
All right, my pick was a South Korean film from 2006 called Time. Directed by, oh God, I'm going to butcher some names. Directed by Kim Ki-duk.
Yeah.
Starring Ha Jung-woo, Park Ji-yeon, and Kim Seong-min.
Nailed it.
Consumed by jealousy, a woman takes an extreme step and undergoes surgery for a new face. Although her lover of 2 years misses her, he falls in love with the new face, not knowing it's the same woman. Anybody else watch this one?
This is like the ultimate man test. Like, would he still love me if I had a different face?
The film was essentially a PSA warning against the teen trend of facial alteration for kicks.
Oh.
In South Korea, apparently...
real thing?
Yeah, because it's inexpensive in South Korea to get facial surgeries. So kids would just like go in and get facial surgeries on the weekends to just change their appearances, and they were like, this is kind of becoming a problem.
Yeah.
So they put this movie out as kind of like a kids don't do drugs kind of film. I think the subtitle or the promotional line on the movie poster, the tagline should be "Bitches be crazy, men too."
Oh, okay.
Because that's essentially what happens in this film. His girlfriend is an extremely jealous person, but also kind of a problematic person. She feels like their relationship is stagnated, and every woman they come in contact with, she accuses him of having a wandering eye.
Just
And-
one?
Yeah.
Lazy eye.
So much so in that she would confront people at like there's a cafe that acts as kind of like the center scene for most of the action, and several reviewers also said, how did these people not get kicked out permanently from this cafe? Because the woman was very aggressive. She would like confront these women. Why are you looking at my man? And the people were like, I ain't looking at your man, but she would go completely nuclear on them. And so she got this bright idea that I'm going to ghost you and leave one day, go get facial reconstruction surgery, show back up in your life, and see if you'll fall for me. And then she gets pissed off because he seems to like the new her more than the old her.
Mm-hmm. Just like a woman.
Oh, my God.
Can't live with them, can't give them facial reconstruction surgery.
Right. You get into this philosophical thing about who do you love? Do you love somebody for appearances or who they are at their core? There is this really cool, and if I ever go to South Korea, I want to find this. There's this art garden on an island that serves as one of the set pieces. You take a ferry out to it, and it's this sculpture garden, and everything kind of has this sexual overtone to it. There's this giant like seashell that you can walk inside, and inside there's like naked people and stuff. It's really horny. But there's also this hand sculpture, this giant hand that acts as kind of like a place where you can sit and take pictures. And there's like the little stairs that go up from the index finger. And being an island, it gets submerged when the high tide comes in. So all that you have is this hand sticking up. It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
The guy then goes and gets a plastic surgery on himself. Because he decides to turn the tables on his girl and see if she'll fall for him.
You can play at that game.
Right. And even to the point where he tells her, I'm going to come back in X number of months, and if you're here, then we can be together. And so she comes back, and she starts throwing herself at every guy that she thinks might be him. Embarrassingly so. And he's kind of watching this whole situation. Lots of broken dishes in this movie. I mentioned the cafe where there are these many fights. There are tons and tons of ceramics being thrown and broken. Yeah. Also, the movie ends in a loop. The way the film starts, it's the new face on the woman gets run into by a pedestrian, and it's the face of the former version of herself, and that's the movie, how it loops. Really unusual, really strange. I would not recommend it necessarily.
Yeah, but it starts out with, we got to teach kids a lesson of that's the genesis.
It's not. It wasn't presented in that way. You kind of have to do some background reading to understand the motivation behind it.
Yeah, but still.
It is. That's no way to go about making a movie is to teach the kids a lesson, because that's never going to work. Yeah. And I found that the rationale was so unhinged about I'm going to show you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here, let me
Pretty
get
extreme measures.
Yeah,
to
let me
prove
get
a
my
point.
face all redone and see if you still like me.
Yep.
Bizarre. I don't necessarily recommend this one. Probably I would rank it below Dark Passage.
Okay. The last line of Google's plot description, I think, would make a better tagline, or a legitimate tagline, is losing face, losing yourself.
Oh.
I've only got one fun fact, though. In the movie, apparently, the character Ji Woo is editing a film.
Yes.
Okay, so that movie is actually a movie called 3 Iron, which was an actual film directed by Ki Kim-duk.
Oh, cool.
The director of this movie. So he put his own movie as a movie within the movie.
That's so meta.
So meta, it doesn't even fucking know it, man.
All right, so that's Face Off without the movie Face Off.
Yeah.
It was fun. I enjoyed
Yeah.
it. I thought it was cool. We will be back in a couple of episodes with a Christmas-themed episode.
Lump of coal.
Lump of Coal. We're going to look at some of the dogs.
The films of Gary Cole.
Please rate, review, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Check us out on social media. We are Cinema Chop Shop. We're also Cinema Chop Shop Podcast on YouTube and on Blue Sky. And come back and check us out again. Tell your friends that you love them.
Enjoy your holidays.
Enjoy your holidays. Be with the ones that you care about the most.
Put on some winter weight.
Yeah, I'm already ahead of that curve, baby. And please remember to watch, shop, retrofit.